What is up? I'm Miguel Antonio, and this is the Live and Create podcast. It's where I interview artists and entrepreneurs about what it means to live a great life and create great things. And on today's episode, we have Mark Gagne. He's a visual artist, a comedian, and he created Mindmelt Studio. He blends photography and illustration while exploring topics such as depression, isolation, and anxiety, as well as finding beauty in the unwanted and discarded. His work is fueled through his journey of battling the depths of depression. His hope is that people will find some comfort in examining the darkness and that his work will help people to speak openly and honestly about their own mental health. We talked today about his journey of becoming a full-time visual artist and selling to and developing a fan base all over the world. Mark also describes his battle and journey with depression and how he has leveraged it to create art to help others on their journey. And we also take a few detours that will either delight or offend you, but nonetheless, it's a great one. Enjoy.
The Live and Create podcast.
Okay, sweet. Looking through your artwork, just blown away. I love the images of it, and the darkness of it really grabs me, and I gravitate towards that. Reading your story, depression, dealing with like the depths of depression. From my own personal story is wrapped up in depression, OCD, and anxiety. And so it was interesting to hear. I saw your artwork, and then hearing your own story, like in your bio about it. I was like, oh man, I could feel that connection. It's like there's something dark about it. But then I love the levity where there was one where you had like these creatures outside in the cold, and it's like they're cold, bring them in or something.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I initially posted that just with the creatures, and then one of my fans grabbed the pic and then made it into that meme, and then it just kind of blew up. Like it's been shared like 200,000 times or something. Like it's pretty hilarious. So
yeah,
that's what I try to do. Like some of my images kind of really tackle head on more emotional mental health sort of aspects, and then some of it I just try to be kind of playful but still creepy cute,
creepy cute.
Yeah,
have your own genre right there.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of people that dabble in it, but I mean, I guess that's sort of my branding is the cute and creepy artist. So and it seems to work. So
that's awesome. Now I know I read you had studied at Cambridge, but I'm curious, like how early did
Cambridge?
What is it?
Cambridge.
Cambridge. I'm saying it wrong.
Cambrian.
Cambrian.
Cambrian. There we go.
Cambrian. Am I saying it right
Cambrian
now?
College.
There we go. Cambrian College.
Yeah.
I'm saying it all wrong. My bad, man. But but I'm curious though, where did the passion for art start? Was it something where you found yourself like 3 or 4 years old, already starting to get into the visual arts?
Yeah, I've always been drawing and doodling and stuff ever since I was a young kid. I was kind of drawing like birds and nature stuff when I was younger, and then got into different stuff as I got older. I was actually looking at a career and possibly doing being an architect, draftsman.
Okay.
And then kind of veered away from that because it was just a little too rigid and didn't let me be, as exploratory in my ideas as I wanted. And then I went to fine arts in college and just kind of went from there.
That where did like the creepy aspect come in for you? Was that something you discovered early on? Because you said you're drawing kind of nature and birds and those kind of things. Where did it shift where you saw this darker piece coming out that you connected with?
The darker thing kind of came about, I guess, more recently, like within the last 6, 7, 8 years, kind of thing. Like even when I maybe a little bit of touched on it in college. Like college, we had to adhere to like the curriculum and what the instructors wanted, like landscapes and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I always kind of veered a little more into the cynical and darker stuff at times. And then I really embraced it in the last 6 or 7 years, like I said. And I think part of it is just sort of tapping into my emotional state when I'm creating.
Mm-hmm.
So like all the themes of mental health and trauma and all that kind of stuff that has started to bleed into my work. And then I've just really leaned into it the last couple of years.
Well, and so the theme of mental health and depression, like that's something you've talked about in your bio, and how you infuse it into your work. I'm curious for you, was it something like for example, for me, I can look back as far as when I was like 5 or 6 now and see where those things, especially OCD, was affecting me that I didn't notice until I was like 18, 19 in college and the floor fell out from under me. And I was,
Right.
for you in your story, where did you start seeing like, oh, things are very dark and this is different than maybe how other people are?
Pretty young. I remember being very depressed and sort of self-isolating when I was young. And I remember in particular, not to get too dark or whatever, but I remember being like in grade 4, which is, how old, 8, 9 years old,
Right.
and kind of not wanting to be alive anymore. Not really getting the concept of committing suicide or anything,
Hmm.
but just not wanting to be around anymore. I was obese as a child, and had a lot of intense bullying and stuff, and dealt with a lot of ridicule. And so I was having a really hard time in, like, grade 4, 3 and 4, that kind of thing. Um, yeah, so I remember just having very dark thoughts and being isolated and everything, and it just kind of continued throughout my life.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, very early on.
So in a way, it sounds like some of it was the external forces compounding on top of maybe emotional breaks that were already in you. Is that a
Yeah,
decent assessment?
the mental health thing, kind of runs in my family as well. It's definitely a genetic thing,
Hmm.
because there's other people in my family that struggle a lot with mental health issues. So I think it was just a predisposition that was there, and then definitely, outside external forces added to it. And I've definitely made a lot of discoveries over the years about, what has been a catalyst to my mental health and how I react to certain situations and stuff. Like, it's definitely something you learn as you go.
Yeah, definitely. It's a crazy journey where even like I said, it was like 18, 19 where I had to accept that I was dealing with these things, even though I can look back now and see I was dealing with them for so long, just masking it one way or the other. And even
Yeah.
now I'm 40, and even in new ways, I'm having to still find new tools to deal with it as I approach different things in life that maybe I've never, seen at this point. Um, if you don't mind, Sharon, if you don't want to, it's totally fine. But I'm curious, what were some of the things or tools, or kind of revelations that helped you in stepping out of that darkness? Are you are learning to use that darkness as well to help others and bring you out of it?
I don't mind talking about it. I'm very open about it. I talk about it a lot in social media, and I even talk about it on my art pages and stuff.
Yeah.
About my mental health struggles, and it's actually opened up quite an amazing dialogue with my fans,
Hmm.
because a lot of people can find a connection, that they're not alone in this sort of struggle. But anyways, for coping, like, I kind of have this sort of saying that, it's my mental health is like a piece of artwork that's always in a work in progress. It's never going to be finished. It's always something I'm working on.
I love that.
And I go day to day, um, coping. Like, I've had a lot of therapy and counseling over the years. I definitely recommend that anybody that's struggling go seek counseling,
Hmm.
seek some sort of therapy, find someone to talk to. It absolutely helps, especially when you find the right person
Mm.
to
So
talk
true.
to. And there's nothing wrong with medication, just like anything else. If you break your leg and you need pain meds, your mind can be broken as well, and it's okay to seek out professional help for it. But other than that, here's the usual things like exercise and going outside, getting in touch with nature, finding a creative outlet. I did stand up comedy for a few years,
That's
years
awesome.
back. So I also had that sort of creative outlet to sort of, it was like therapy on stage,
That's
and
awesome,
finding
man.
humor in sort of situations.
Do you plan on going
So,
back
and
to
I've,
that at any point, or?
I was actually about to go back to it when everything kind of got locked down
Ah,
last
COVID
year.
slowed you down.
Yeah, and because I have friends that run like open mic rooms and stuff where I live, and they were really trying to talk me into getting back into it.
Right.
And I finally was like, yeah, I think I will. And then of course everything popped off with COVID, and I was like, yeah, well, okay, you know, I guess I'll lean back into my artwork again. So yeah,
Right.
I mean, it's something that I've always been a humorous person and love comedy. So and that's also something that's definitely helped me cope is having a sort of a funny outlook on things.
Hmm.
So
Well, and it's
yeah,
interesting because when I think of comedy, some of the comedy I'm drawn to is like the darkest comedy, and there's something
yeah,
almost healing about hearing someone else talk about some dark shit and then finding the humor and light in it. Like Anthony Jeselnik is probably one of my favorite comedians. I don't know if you're familiar
yeah,
with him, but
yeah,
it's just that darker, edgier kind of piece where it's cathartic in, in a sense. So
yeah. Well, even like growing up, like my dad was always into stand-up comedy, so I would watch, stand-up comedy with him growing up. And I mean, one of my childhood heroes was Robin Williams.
yeah.
And like Robin Williams and even like Jim Carrey and all these other stand-up comics, that there's a darkness behind all of them.
Hmm.
There's trauma, a lot of them have really, really dark sort of lives, and it comes out in the humor, and it's
Yeah.
very real and relatable. Like my favorite comic, like Patton Oswalt, was very sort of dark material and stuff, and especially his last special where a lot of his material is about his wife that passed away.
Hmm. I haven't
It's
heard that
very
one.
real stuff, but you should. It's it's something you have to prepare for because it can be an emotional set. Because of course,
Yeah.
he's talking about his wife that just suddenly passed away, and sort of dealing with that with his daughter and everything. But yeah, I think behind all great comedy, there's tragedy.
Right. Well, there's is it Hannah Gadsby or Gatsby? Am I getting that name right? Are
Yes,
you familiar with that name? I don't know if you've
yeah.
seen her last special, but it was this
I haven't
very,
I haven't seen it. I've seen a lot of people talk about it, but I have not seen it.
and it's definitely on the edge. She almost merged it where I don't even know if you could call it stand-up comedy. It felt almost like a very humorous TED talk in a way,
Yeah,
but it was she. Excuse me. She unpacked the things that she'd been through and the trauma that she'd been through, but in this way that I think we're able to disarm a lot of people, maybe even people that I would hope people that would disagree with even her own lifestyle, where it disarmed them maybe to even hear what her real experiences were. But yeah, it was such a thing where you find yourself like cracking up and then you find yourself crying, like because
yeah.
you are connected in the sadness that she was going through. And I thought it was such a beautiful piece of art. But yeah, if you ever get the chance, definitely
Yeah,
check
I'll have
that
to
one
check
out.
it out. I've heard great things, and like you said, it's not really so much a stand up comedy where it's like a dialogue, And I think of one of my all time favorites is Mike Burbiglio,
Yeah, he's great.
um, and and like he's just a storyteller,
Yeah.
and he's dealt with some dark stuff, like with his sleep medical issues and stuff. Like he threw himself out of a hotel window,
Oh shit, I missed
sleepwalking
that
one
one.
night. Yeah, yeah, like it's
I used to have night
and
terrors, so that like
yeah,
it would freak me out to know like yeah, when I toured with my band, we had to share beds in the hotel room, and everyone would fight
yeah,
of who didn't want to share the bed with me because like I put my fist
right,
through a window, those kind of things, but he
yeah,
literally threw himself out a window.
yeah. He had I forget the name. It's like Sleepwalk with Me or something like that.
Oh,
His
I have to check that
special
out.
where he talks about how he had this horrible like sleepwalking thing, and he literally threw himself through like a glass door window or whatever of a hotel, and he like suddenly woke up and he's covered in glass and blood, and he
Jesus.
walks yeah, he walks around to the front desk and says, I just threw myself through your window kind of thing. And yeah, like really dark stuff, like,
Yeah.
but able to find the humor in it, and it's definitely a coping mechanism. It's definitely been my coping mechanism. Like I've always been considered the funny, especially when I was younger, the funny fat guy. So, it's definitely something that's helped cope with things.
Well, and I know, and it's Quebec, right? where you're at?
Ontario.
Ontario, damn it. I keep mixing it up. Like I know
That's okay.
two places in Canada, and so I just start throwing things out. But I know you guys just went into lockdown again, but hopefully sooner than later you'll get that chance to be on that stage again. We're
Yeah,
slowly
I'll
I'm in
definitely.
the Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it's definitely something I think I'll tap into because my mental health is definitely in a much different place than it was back when I was doing stand up. So it'd be interesting to see what I talk about. Especially, I've lost a considerable amount of weight too since I was doing stand up before. So I don't know. Maybe I'll touch on that. Yeah.
That's cool, man. Yeah, like for us, everything's kind of slowly coming out. I live in the Midwest here, Missouri, Kansas City, and and we have our whole things. I don't know how much of a battle you had between people who thought COVID wasn't real and people who did. We had those big battles, but nonetheless, we're here in the Midwest, and primarily in the city, people took it very seriously, and it's slowly starting to open back up. Shows are starting to slowly happen, and it's exciting. So I can't wait till hopefully
Yeah.
by the end of this year, everybody's back and firing and rolling again in as safe way.
Yeah, we still have some pushback here. Like we still have the anti-maskers and
Yep.
my freedom and all this kind of
Freedom.
stuff. And
So you guys have
yeah,
freedom people too?
yeah, the freedom people. Yeah, and it's really aggravating, and it's just these people that don't even have a high school education are trying to school us on science
Right.
and medicine. It's
Because
like,
that one YouTube video.
yeah, exactly. And there's people like having protest rallies about the lockdown and stuff, and it's just like I don't know, like you don't know what oppression really is,
Yes.
like
Agreed.
don't talk to me about oppression. Why don't you go talk to somebody who's actually been oppressed and marginalized and get some fresh perspective.
Absolutely.
It's so infuriating to me, but.
Well, there was a guy at my gym that was talking about how he hated the mask, and I was like, in my mind, I was like, the fact that we're wearing masks is the reason we can even be here. So maybe you should shut up, and like just going
Well,
on where he's like, the science doesn't show this, and I'm just like, trying to work out, and it's nuts. I want to take a spray bottle and spray it on a window, and then spray it through the mask, and like. It's not 100% effective, but it does keep shit from flying into other people's faces.
well, and it's funny. Like I was talking to my fiance not too long ago about how like we haven't had a cold or a flu
Uh-huh.
in I don't know how long. For sure, probably a year and a half
Right.
since we've had a cold or flu. And usually, like we've been sick a few times. We've had a cold like, 2 or 3 times over the winter here, like and nothing. So don't tell me that masks don't work.
It's helped
And like
something.
the whole like I can't breathe thing. I mean, there's surgeons that wear them for 12 hours at a time.
Right.
There's medical professionals that wear them every day for 12 hours. So
Yeah.
and none of them are dropping dead or getting poisoned by CO2 or whatever you want to say it was. It's
Yeah.
just it's madness.
That's nuts. Like I remember one of the tours we did, we were at a military installation, and they put me in the bomb suit, like the full, hurt locker kind of bomb suit, and
Yeah.
put the big thing over my head and then had me do push-ups. I did 5 push-ups. It's like in this thing, and we're in the desert, super hot. And I freaked the fuck out. I was just like, when those guys work in that, like you said, 12 hours a day, guys and girls, and it's like, and you can't put a piece of cloth over your mouth. Like, come on, man. Like, let's just do this.
Like
Although I did freak out.
planning
But
on yeah, like I'm planning on actually wearing a mask probably after this.
right. Well, and
I kind of like the
go
I
ahead.
kind of like the anonymity and I like protecting myself from all the gross people out there. Like, I mean, you look in China, and I mean, yes, it's because of their pollution and stuff, but they've been wearing masks for years.
Yes.
So I don't know. I'm fine with it.
And what I understand of their society, they almost see it as a way to show care for the other person. It could be wrong,
Absolutely.
but it sounds like that's the case where it's like, hey, I feel sick, so as I'm going out, I'm going to put this thing on, and it's not a bad idea for us to adopt.
Absolutely not.
I look forward to shows without masks and everyone's vaccinated. I do. That'll be a blast. But like the concept of like, I kind of have a cold, but I need to go to Target. Why not throw a mask on? Keep everybody else safe.
Or even the people that, especially in our capitalist society, I mean, a lot of us have to go to work sick.
Right.
Well, at least if you're wearing a mask, maybe it'll mitigate some of the spread of your germs, but Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. The whole concept of us losing our freedoms is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah,
It's yeah,
absolutely. Especially when it's a temporary thing and we're all getting through it. Um,
yeah,
Jumping back though into the art of
yeah,
what you're doing, doing
yeah.
the
Sorry about the
comedy.
tangent
No,
there.
you're fine. I got on the tangent too because I'm
Yeah,
on a
yeah,
bunch of tangents as I shared before we started the podcast. I
yeah,
I could
yeah.
go off
We
on a
just
bunch of
kind of
tangents
Lewis
right now.
Blacked here and just went nuts.
But yeah, that is such a painful truth of the world we live in. Maybe I have some anti-masker fan listening. He's so angry right now, and I just want to
Oh
say,
yeah, yeah.
put on
Well,
a
we're
goddamn
all gonna
mask.
get hate mail. I'm gonna start getting hate mail on my social media. I refuse to buy your art anymore.
Right. That's Jason Isbell. Are you familiar with him?
Uh,
Songwriter.
is that the one that got in hot water about he said the N word and
Well, so it's not him. So that's
okay,
Morgan something. Morgan, I don't even know. So that
yeah,
guy Morgan covered a Jason Isbell song. It's called "Cover Me Up."
okay,
It's a beautiful song. And when Jason Isbell, he got a bunch of shit because he's kind of this Americana country esque kind of artist. Well, when he found out
okay,
all that stuff happened with Morgan, he announced that all the money he gets from that album, just because of the way the contracts work, he's just going to donate it, I think, to the AACP and NAACP or something, because he's like, I don't want any of that money
that's
from him,
awesome.
period. And so he's been very vocal, and he's like, you know what? I don't give a fuck. I don't care. And I
Yeah,
loved his music, and now I love it even more because he's willing to take a
that's
stand for
awesome.
things and do it. So
And it's good. It's good to see these people that have a platform and some clout using it for good.
hmm
Like you are seeing that in the world. But I mean, unfortunately, there's a lot of horrible people in the world too, and it's a shame that we don't focus more on the people that are doing good. Like we always focus on the loudest, most obnoxious people in the
right.
room. We need to focus on the people that are doing good things.
Absolutely. That's there's a band had their lead singer on the podcast probably about I would say 4 or 5 weeks ago. His name's Enrique. They're a band called Making Movies. They tour all over the world. Been on Latin Grammys. Like they've just accomplished so much. It's so impressive. But what's more impressive to me than even that is when they come back home to Kansas City, they started their own art as mentorship school where they're investing in the communities that they grew up in and that they live in and teaching kids how to write songs and like bringing in all these famous people they meet on the road. They get them to come to Kansas City and sit down with these kids and teach them about songwriting, about the music industry. And it's like,
That's
that's
awesome.
some stuff to herald because I think there is a lot of people doing cool shit like that does need to be
Yeah,
put out
and
there. So,
especially mentoring and fostering the arts is such a great thing too, because I don't know, there's such a blowback towards the arts community. It seems all the time, it's not like, oh, it's not a necessity and blah blah blah.
right.
Even though the artists are responsible for the packaging of all the stuff you use and the movies and the music and everything, and the artwork on your walls, even the crap you buy from Walmart,
Like
it's
someone
all
made
created
that.
by an
Someone
artist.
created it. Yeah.
Exactly. So better check yourself.
Well, it was a great eye opener. I wish I can remember the original person who posted it, but it said something like everyone has pushed the arts aside, and now during a pandemic, it's where everyone is gravitating to. It's like all the shows, all the movies, all the music, all the artwork.
Yeah,
Like it's where people are drawn to when they need peace, they need understanding, they need healing.
yeah,
Yeah,
surround
it's.
yourself with things that comfort you and make you happy.
Mhm.
you know
So good art and a brownie and a glass of whiskey, and I'm good to go.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Now, so you did the comedy piece. Now, when we look at your visual art, which is kind of the main focus for you, uh, how do you see? I'm, I don't even know if I'm crafting this question correctly. So if I ask it and you want to take it a different direction, go for it. But like, how do you see your battle with depression and your battle in this darkness influencing the visual art that you create?
Well, I think especially with the more recent series that I've done, the inked photography, where I take my photographs and add these dark sort of inky creatures. Like there's a couple of facets to it. Like part of it is tapping into my depression and anxiety, and another part of it is my anxiety and sadness about how we've treated the planet,
Hmm.
and the how we've destroyed the environment and global warming and all that kind of stuff, and all that kind of just feeds into the each other. Um, And like I said before, a lot of people have found some connection with that, especially right now with all these lockdowns and quarantine and the chaos in the world and politics and all that stuff. I guess it's a comfort. It's a comfort for me. It's therapeutic for me to create it, to get my feelings sort of out on paper, even if it's like in squiggly ink monsters, and it's therapeutic for people to see it.
Right.
So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, and kind of what I hear is like your process almost, and correct me if I'm wrong, sounds like your process is part of the therapy, and then the fact that you get to give it to other people in a sense is almost therapy. Is that
Yeah,
did
yeah,
I boil that
exactly.
down? I don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely therapeutic. It like even when I look at the work that I did like 5 or 6 years ago, like I was doing a lot of fan art and stuff, which is great. It was great for honing my skills, but ultimately I wasn't getting myself out on paper by drawing Superman.
Right.
So I had to sort of explore darker stuff that was sort of bubbling in my brain, and getting it out there. And it was a little tough going at first, actually, like exploring my own creations and my own characters, because it's not recognizable to everybody.
Hmm.
But I think now people are on my wavelength, and they're seeing meaning behind the images. So it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool thing.
Now, when you say it was tough, was it from the perspective of tough for you to divulge that part of you, or tough just to get people to understand that part at first?
Probably both.
Okay.
Probably both. Um, because you're kind of laying yourself bare. Like, I mean, even sort of coming to terms with the fact that I have at times severe depression, and I've had anxiety, and realizing how I create. Like I find with depression, I kind of shut down and sort of curl like into a little ball, figuratively. Whereas anxiety, I kind of get like kind of manic, and I'm like just hyper creative. Um, and so putting yourself out there with your artwork, tapping into your feelings, and your mental health, sort of state of mind when you're creative, it leaves you raw, like you have an open wound that people are kind of looking at, and maybe poking at, and whatever. um, but also the aspect of people sort of recognizing it, and finding some connection to it. Like at first, some of the dark imagery might be off-putting. Like as as much as people love my work, for the most part, I do get the odd person saying, "Well, that's really dark, man," and that's really creepy. I don't like that, and
It's
whatever,
like,
which is fine. Like
you're like,
different
thanks,
strokes
thanks,
for.
man.
Yeah, and I mean, I do get the odd disparaging remark about it, like, and that's fine. Like, but it's not for everybody.
Right.
Um, and so like in terms of like even art sales and stuff, we're quite low for a while, because people were quite on my wavelength.
Hmm.
But I think the art world has changed too, though, over the last few years.
In what way
Where,
do you feel like it's changed?
well, I think like there's like genres like lowbrow art and outsider art, that I think have really come to the forefront more in the last few years. And I don't know if that's just a reflection of the times that we're in, and the chaos, again, with politics and world events and all that stuff. I think people are being a lot more open about their mental health struggles,
Hmm.
and are being a lot more raw with people about how they're feeling, which is a great thing. I think if we're all more honest about how we're feeling, it could lead to good things, and to maybe some good change.
Absolutely. And powerful art. I feel like sometimes, especially even the music world, I'm a big fan of well produced music and well produced even art, but there's this piece that the rawness sometimes is what people long for. Like Jason Isbell, I mentioned, like it's actually well produced music, but damn, there's just a rawness to the lyrics he chooses. There's a rawness to his voice, and it's like in artwork, like even if you could tell it's like it's well done. What you do is well done, but then there is this like this rawness and angst that just grabs, at least grabs me, and it sounds like grabbing a lot of other people. That
Yeah.
in a way, I feel like our worlds become maybe overproduce, so people are reacting against that. Like I just want something fucking real, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's Yeah, I think there's kind of a pushback, I think, to a lot of the things that we sort of accepted for so long, like, capitalism and all that, kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Um, and I think people are just uh, sort of getting back to grassroots and getting back to what's important. And if anything that good comes out of this pandemic, maybe it's people, having the chance to be reflective on things and to take stock in what really matters, and realize that sometimes you really do have to put yourself first and take care of yourself
Mm-hmm.
before you can take care of others and so on.
Well, and even it's interesting to hear your story as you're sharing it here. Your journey of wrestling with your own depression and finding your own wellness, your own mental health is now overflowing through your art and through your comedy to bring
Yeah.
joy and maybe maybe help other people along that same journey. I think that's pretty cool. But that key part is you had to go through it for yourself at first.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm still going through it. Like, I'm just kind of getting out of a funk right now where I wasn't really creating too much the last couple of weeks. Um, and was just kind of focusing on myself and, spending time with my fiance, just playing some PS4 and whatever,
Right.
just kind of chilling, just kind of forgetting about stuff for a little bit. And I was open about that, like on my Facebook art page. Like, I have a very open dialogue with my fans, just saying, I'm having a hard time right now. I'm not really creating too much. How are you guys doing? Here's some pictures of my cats, kind of
That's
thing.
great.
And just having this open dialogue has been really the most rewarding thing for me. Like, I've gotten choked up at times having conversations with people, like, over Messenger or whatever, about how the work has connected with them in different ways. And it's always interesting to me to see the different things that people take from pieces. Like, there's always something a little bit different, like whether it's like family trauma or child abuse or whatever. There's always something very powerful behind it.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's been very rewarding.
Well, and that's a beautiful thing about art where, like songs I'll write about, one thing, someone reaches out and shares it, a whole other like perspective of it I didn't even see. And it's like, man, it's amazing that you can put that out there and then 10
Yeah, I
different
get
people
that all
get
the
10
time. Like
different things.
somebody will make a comment about my work and they'll say, well, I see this, and it's just like, wow, I never thought of it that way, but I could totally see that, and it's really changed my perspective on my own work,
Right.
which is really incredible, because it's coming from a place in your mind that you think you get it, and then somebody says, well, I see this, and it's like, that's really, really intriguing, it just makes the whole thing really, really interesting. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, it sounds like the fans you're very connected to, the fans of your art. Um, and I know you were sharing how you were able to get to build this to where the art is your main source of income. How long did that journey take for you? And were there any big critical steps to help you get there that you took?
It was definitely a long haul. Like, I mean, I took fine arts in college for 3 years at the beginning of the 2000s. And then after that, I was mostly doing like photography and stuff, working odd jobs, that sort of thing. Um, I got into illustrating. Basically, it was my fiance that kind of pushed me into getting back into illustrating, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, and just doing fan art and stuff like that. Just, nothing really great or meaningful. And it really took a while to really find my voice with my work,
Mm-hmm.
find my style and everything. Um, I had some personal setbacks. I had some really harsh critiques on my work in the early going that kind of crushed me. Um,
Yeah, I feel you on that.
yeah, and
That could be a heavy.
sometimes it's hard to take criticism. I came out on the other side. Like, my fiance says, like, it was a really dark time for you when you were criticized that way. Um, and sometimes it's hard to see it when you're in it,
Mm-hmm.
how dark it was.
Right.
But I came out on the other side of that, I think, with a different perspective on how to go about my work. And I think it definitely improved at that point. And even looking at my work like 3 years ago compared to what I'm doing now, there's been a lot of growth, but it's a very gradual thing. Like, a lot of, I see a lot of artists out there that are, especially just starting out, and they're kind of asking like, how do I find my own style? How do you find a style? And it's something that just kind of comes organically, like you can't just sort of choose it. It just sort of happens, at least in my experience.
And then
Um,
was it for you, what was the confirmation that you were finding your own style? What did that confirmation look like for you?
Basically it was people just commenting saying like, oh, that, I know your work from a mile away, kind of thing. Or like or they see the picture before they see the person posting it on social media, and they're like, that's a Mark Gagne piece.
Nice.
And that was happening even when I was doing fan art. Like when I was doing fan art, I still had my sort of style injected into it. So yeah, when people were, kind of taking notice and leaving those remarks that, like, you definitely have a style, it's validating, because at least you're not just being
Absolutely.
cookie cutter. Even if you're just doing fan art, you're putting a little piece of yourself into it.
What would you say to a younger artist? What would be another piece of advice you would give them if they're listening right now?
um it's going to be discouraging at times, absolutely. It still can be discouraging at times, but keep plugging away, keep hustling, keep drawing, keep creating. um, I see this meme going around once in a while that, as much as you beat up on yourself, you're inspiring somebody out there, even if you don't know it. So, even if you're only getting like 2 likes on a piece, those are two people that took the time out of their day to like that. So try not to get bogged down in the minutia of everything, and just keep creating.
That's huge. That's there's a guy I reference way too much on this podcast, but Garyvee. Do you listen to him at all? Gary Vaynerchuk, like business. He's like a business
No,
guy, but he
uh,
speaks a lot to artists as well, just because it's artistry is an entrepreneurial endeavor, and that was his big thing that he would push. Like, just saying like, stop posting to get the likes, stop watching what the likes look like, and just post
yeah.
what you want to be known for, and keep putting those things out there.
and,
And
and hey, like I still have a hard time, pulling away from like obsessing over the likes, because
absolutely. Yeah, no, it's
it's
not an
such a
easy thing
social
to
media
do.
driven society now, where you want to see all the heart reacts and stuff to everything, and the shares and whatever. um and I mean, if you put the time in, and you keep cranking away at it, it'll come. That sort of thing will come in time. It's just honing your craft, and finding your artistic voice. And as your voice gets out there, people will notice it.
That's cool, man. And I'm curious about your process of creation. Do you is it regimented? Do you write in or not write? Sorry. Do you create in seasons? Like, what does your process look like currently?
It's not very rigid or regimented, I would say. Like, I know there's some artists that kind of like to put in like a 9 to 5.
Hmm.
With me, yeah, I just kind of go like in bursts. Like I'll be creating almost nonstop for like a few weeks or a month or whatever, and then it'll slow
Okay.
down again. It's an ebb and flow kind of thing. Um, a lot of it is just, an idea will just hit me, and I have to, put it on paper. And sometimes I just feel like drawing, and I don't really have an idea. And as I'm drawing, an idea will form. And so it's. I hate to say that it's not regimented at all, but it isn't. It just kind of happens.
Well, it is what it is in that respect, and I think the artists. It seems like a lot of artists, as I get feedback, listen to this of just different mediums, and the idea of process, I think, is one thing that almost all of us are thinking about. Like, am I doing it the right way, and figuring it out. Where I typically am more regimented, but actually, the last several people I've talked to, they have more of a approach, probably more like you. I like how you said it comes in bursts, where
Yeah, yeah.
it makes me wonder if I should experiment with different things, and so yeah, it's helpful to hear that. It's like it can look so many different ways, and one part of
And
it
it,
maybe
it's
is
hard.
oh, go ahead.
Well, at least with me, and I mean, I'm sure this is a very common thing. It's the whole imposter syndrome too, where you feel like you're not doing your process right.
Right.
You're not
Exactly.
you're not, yeah, like you're not arting right. You know, whereas there's no real right way to do it. Like people keep excuse me, keep asking me if I'm going to do like process videos, and I've kind of been putting that off because I'm afraid of showing people how I work, because I see process videos of other artists. It's like, I don't work like that, and then like I don't use a brush pen like that or whatever, like I find I'm overly critical of how I do my process, and it's just
Right.
like everybody has their way of doing it, and no matter what your process is, it all that matters is the end result, and are you happy with the end result, and that's what matters.
That's cool. That's awesome, man. Well, jumping into the last two questions, Live and Create podcast. What does it mean to live a great life and create great things? I'm curious for you right now, in your life, how you would describe or define living a great life for you.
Uh, Living a great life, for me, is being able to be creative. Creative is just part of who I am. I've been like that all my life. So being able to do that for a living now is pretty amazing. It's been an incredible year for me, actually. I mean, strangely, the world is burning right now. But creatively and career wise, I'm having the best year and a half of my life. And that's just, really finding my voice and my niche with my artwork, and getting validation from people, who are really connecting with it, and having this sort of little community around my artwork has been really, really rewarding. And also being able to support myself. Unfortunately, this is a money-based world, so I have to pay my rent. I have to pay for my car. And now that I'm able to do that with my artwork is just incredible. It's kind of a dream come true. It's what I always wanted to be able to do. And now I'm kind of able to do it, which is amazing. And I'm kind of just riding this wave. It's been great.
That's awesome, man. And it definitely ties in then to your definition. The next question, how would you define creating great things right now in your life?
For me, therapy through my art has been great. And creating all these connections with people like around the world. Like I've had people message me from all over the world, Australia, England, and the same with my sales are all over the world. So it's kind of having this global connection with people through this dark art, this art that taps into mental health. It's a universal thing. It doesn't matter if you're in New Zealand or Spain. There's people that are struggling and that are seeking comfort with others, and it's all come about through my creation, which is pretty awesome.
That is awesome, man. Well, let everyone know how they can check out your creations throughout your links, and I'll add that in all the text and everything. But yeah, let them know how they can find you.
Well, you can find me on Facebook under Mindmelt Studio. All my artwork is posted on my Facebook page, and I interact with people as much as possible. I'm also on Instagram at mindmelt_studio. And you can also find all my artwork for sale on my website, www.mindmeltstudio.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks for making the time today. And it was a great conversation. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you. Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to the Live and Create podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment or a review.
The Live and Create podcast.